Hi Crab Cakes, I'm Lionel, this is Little Buddy, and this is the Big Crab Cake channel. Welcome to another edition of Secondhand Trains. In our first episode of Secondhand Trains, we talked about ways of saving money on our train collection. But sometimes secondhand trains are actually more expensive than the original manufacturer's price, and just as hard to find. We're going to talk about that today because I've recently found a train that I've been looking for over 5 years. And here it is. We're going to unbox it and take a look. So this is a Standard Gauge Tinplate train, and it is a reproduction done by M.T.H trains as part of their Tinplate Traditions line. This was made in 2005. This actually was produced before I was really heavily involved in trains. So by the time I even noticed that this was had been manufactured, it was too late to purchase it new. And because very few had been manufactured, it was incredibly difficult to find. When I could find it, the laws of supply and demand took over, and it was significantly more expensive than what it would have been originally. Standard gauge trains are much, much larger than O gauge, which is what I mostly collect. You're going to like this one. Comes wrapped in an outer protective plastic with an inner soft liner. It's great under a Christmas tree or as part of an Easter village or just running. There you have it. The M.T.H line's parlor car. This was produced in 2005. It's made in pink and apple green highlights, the windows and the door. I believe the doors are open and the doors are closed. See, the doors work. It has brass highlights like the stairs, and 6-wheel trucks. See on the bottom, each of the trucks has 6 wheels. It's a bone protector. Tell just by the way I'm holding it that the size and weight of these are much bigger than an ordinary train, and these run on a different size track. It's a slightly wider track called standard gauge. O gauge being a narrower track. There's an entire passenger set of 4 cars. This was produced only 1 year, in 2005, and in very small numbers. And some people were under the impression that this was what was considered a fantasy scheme, something that they just made up, or a fantasy livery, a paint job basically, that never happened before it. So this is, while these were intended to be a reproduction of an earlier Lionel models, sometimes it would come out in colors that hadn't been done. As it turns out, it was not a fantasy scheme. Lionel did produce a pink passenger train sometime prior to World War II. Those, of course, are exceedingly hard to find. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really looking for an old train like that. I like the Tinplate trains. I like the way they look. I like the way they sound when they run. But I also like that they look brand new. And the reproductions have that look. If we were to get a 100-year-old train, not only would it be much more expensive, but it would be somewhat weathered, and depending on how much it had been played with, scratched, and maybe restored. You know, just not interested in that. I'm not that kind of collector. I just like the trains. So for me, when M.T.H was making reproductions of some of the earlier Tinplate trains, that's a perfect fit for me. Let's see what some of the other ones look like. This is the baggage car. It has some passenger seating, but also an area. Is this open? Maybe not. That would also an area that would hold luggage. I'm going to take all the packing off because we're going to put this on the track in a minute. I'm really excited to get this. I looked for this for so long. How did I find it? Well, that's one of the tips from today. Sometimes if there's something that's highly unusual, a train like this is really a collector's train. It's going to be people that are super into the hobby and probably have done a lot of research to even know this exists. And so where I found this was that sort of a group. There's a group called the TCA, the Train Collectors Association, and they put out a newsletter 4 times a year. And in the back is a fair amount of pages of trains for sale, sort of member to member. And this was there. TCA is like $50 a year to join. It's something small. I've been a member of it for as long as I can recall. This is the observation car, which basically means it's the last car on the train. And there is a patio across the back. Porch, I'm not sure what you call that. And there's one more car. This is the dining car. Inside there are tables with 4 chairs, 2 on each side. Now, one of the things that made this difficult for me to find is I'd never saw it in person. I had just seen a picture of it on one of the train forums and then began doing some research to find out. And it's large. I believe that this is comparable to what we might be called a state set, and it has 6-wheel trucks. But when I searched through the Tinplate Traditions, the M.T.H. Tinplate Traditions catalog from 2005, it showed a picture of this car, but with 4-wheel trucks. And so that was confusing to me to try to find out the model number of the one with 6-wheel trucks. As it turns out, it was never produced with the 4-wheel trucks. That was a catalog error that was fixed prior to production. So it had been placed in the catalog with a picture of it with 4-wheel trucks, but then some collector who knew what they were talking about and was very deep into the hobby got a hold of M.T.H. and let them know, hey, you're doing it wrong. If you're making a reproduction of the original Lionel train from pre-war days, it would have 6-wheel trucks. They checked it out, realized that was correct, and changed it before it went into production. But the catalog had already been out, and since it was only offered for the 1 year, it was never corrected in any kind of a future catalog. So there is our 4 cars, but we're going to need something to pull it. And what also came along with the set was a very nice, interesting looking engine. We have that here. It's very heavy. This one has the original packing box. I'm not really worried about that part. I'm not that kind of collector. I know that some of the original Lionel boxes that were the original shipping containers, even empty, sell for thousands of dollars. It's just not for me. I just like running the trains and I like the way they look. I like the nostalgic way they look. So I'm a fan of the older trains, but I like the newer versions of it. This version of the engine actually has some sound features that are absolutely only on newer trains. There's sort of crew talk or engine sound, which you can use or not use. Okay, this is a really heavy engine, and apparently for traction, they added weight to it. And so this thing weighs close to 20 pounds. It comes with 4 flags that go on the front and back of the engine, and extra light bulbs. The screw-in kind, just like the old style light bulbs. We're going to take some close-up photos to show you. This thing is really super heavy. And then we're going to put it on the track and see how it runs. This is the Tinplate Traditions by M.T.H. Electric Trains 408E Tinplate electric engine in pink. It comes with 2 precision flywheel equipped motors, directionally controlled headlights, metal handrails, and decorative horn. It measures almost 19 inches long and weighs close to 20 pounds. It has a minimum curve of Standard Gauge 42. These 4 passenger cars are part of the Tinplate Traditions by M.T.H. Electric Trains 4-car standard gauge 418 set in pink. They have metal wheels and axles, overhead interior lights, detailed car interiors, and baked enamel finish. They have brass trim and stamped steel body and chassis, and operating latch couplers. Each unit measures just a little bit longer than 20 inches and operates on a minimum of standard gauge 42-inch track. So while these engines will run on a minimum of standard gauge 42, which is slightly under 4 feet diameter circle, we're going to run it on standard gauge 72, which is just an inch or so wider than a 6-foot circle. I think it just looks better. I like the way these big cars look. There's a little bit extra overhang on them on the 42 that I don't care for as much. It's still fun no matter what. But I think it's just more fitting, and it looks better when it runs on standard gauge 72. So there it is. I'm so excited to finally find this train, and here it is. It looks fantastic. I love this baked enamel finish and the size of these cars. I'm seeing it for the first time when I open it, same as you. This is just one of those days where you finally find something you've been looking for a long time. And of course, there's always other things we're looking for, but this one in particular was something that I really was having a hard time finding, and was looking at train shows and estate sales and newspapers, anything I could come up with. Finally found it in what is essentially a club newsletter. And maybe that's the tip for today. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Secondhand Trains. We're going to have a lot of future episodes with different tips in each one, and I think all of them will be valuable depending on what it is you're looking for or how you want to approach the hobby. In any case, thank you for stopping by and spending time with us. I think we had a good time. What do you think, little buddy? You liking that one, don't you? Little buddy loves this train, you could tell. In any case, if you like this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more like it, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That'll do it for today. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Big Crab Cake channel.